Hey Crispy, I thought I'd give your channel a quick glory story for a change, so here's one from the campaign I've been playing in so far. I mean, I say glory story, but it might actually be more of a horror story for our DM. For us players, though, it was pretty sweet. In this particular scenario, our party was making our way through a dungeon in search of a dragon egg that we need to complete a quest. We made it to the entrance to the final chamber. Peering inside, we can see a large rectangular room with an empty pedestal in the center, treasure chests lining the walls, and a mirror on the wall opposite the entrance. Not a creature in sight. We were fearing a trap of some sort. Of course you were! Why do DMs think that stuff works, man? Like, you put a big empty room and say, yup, no problem here.
You see?
Anyway, we were feeling a trap. We had our party's warlock cast invisibility on our rogue, who then entered the chamber to scout it out. She investigated a mirror on the wall and discovered that was actually an entrance to a second chamber nearly identical to the first. The pedestal in the middle of the room held the dragon egg we were after, which the rogue pocketed without a problem. She then investigated the treasure chest in this new chamber, found the treasure to be legitimate, and took that too. She returned to the party without incident, and then we all just left the dungeon. Wait, seriously? That was the gimmick?
Damn it! The Dragon Codex of Ancients. It has to be here somewhere.
Patience, my friend. My investigation is not yet concluded on this matter.
The map clearly says it's supposed to be in this room. Do you see it?
Yes, I do.
No, you don't, dude. It's not here. What are you talking about? No, you're right, but I am also right. You see, it is in this room, but the problem is, this is not this room. This is a decoy room, filled head to toe with traps.
Bro, that doesn't even make any sense.
Idiot. Now, my calculations are correct. I will do the secret knock on this door to reveal the true room. I knew it.
After the session ended, the DM informed us the first chamber was actually completely laden with traps, but every single trap depended on you being visible. You know, I don't understand why the DM ran it like that, but I respect them for sticking to their guns. Personally, I would have guarded the egg with an ancient dragon with an immunity shield that can only be taken off by doing a complex series of raid mechanics, and if you fail, a disintegrate trap springs and kills you instantly. But that's just me. Hello Crispy and fellow tavern frequenters. I've been tuning into your channel since I first rolled a character about 3 years ago, and yes, I'm still a D&D noob, so be gentle. And I loved every tale you shared. I never thought I'd have my own horror story to send to you, but after watching your episode about Dave and his Nazi jokes, I remembered my own run-in with an edgelord who thought jokes were his comedy gold. Fair warning, this one's a bit long, but stick with me, it's worth the journey. This tale unfolds in May of 2024 on a D&D Discord server where I played before. The previous campaign ended when the Dungeon Master did something extremely weird, but that's a horror story for another time. Oh, come on, alright. Kahoot time! What did the DM do, alright? I'm betting it's D opened up a wormhole to allow Eldritch Horror from beyond the universe, serving only to... Anyway, when the server owner, my good friend the cleric, invited me to a fresh campaign with a brand new Dungeon Master, I jumped at the chance. After all, I've always been down for some roleplay, especially since I was getting a chance to try out my new multi-class creation, a Way of the Open Hand Monk / Lycan Blood Hunter Turtle. I spoke to the Dungeon Master about a twist for my clan. I thought it'd be cool if they were unique looking. Looked more human or elven than other turtles. They'd still have the claws and the shell, but it was mostly just an aesthetic thing. The Dungeon Master loved it, so I went all in. Our party was assembled. The cleric was the server owner and longtime friend. The new DM was the first ever Dungeon Master but experienced player. Rogue was another friend I just met in this campaign. Awesome dude. Paladin A was a great guy. Actually used Smite and played Paladin well. And then we had a problem player who was also playing a Paladin. Never used Smite, which like, why would you not use Smite? What's wrong with you? And well, he was also our problem player, and there was also me. We kicked off session 1, everyone introduced their characters, and all was smooth until I posted my character's art. Our problem player immediately blurted out, "He's black!" followed by the most grating Mickey Mouse Clubhouse laugh ever. Now, I tolerate the usual, like, fantasy racism, orcs versus elves and humans, drow versus seemingly everybody, and I know some settings and lore call for that kind of thing, but, like, this was different. It was personal. I was a black man myself. I felt kind of like a jab in the gut. Also, aren't you a turtle? Imagine trying to bring Jim Crow laws to the Galapagos Islands. I brushed it off. Maybe he's just never played with a black character before, I thought, but the sly comments kept going. Our black turtle companion. Oh, it's 'cause he's black. Each remark punctuated by that same cartoonish chuckle. I politely asked him to just stop, but he waved it off, claiming, "It's okay, I'm brown, I'm Filipino." No! No! It's Pinoy, no! Is this the way white people feel like all the time? Sorry. As if the racism wasn't enough, Problem Player developed an obsessive crush on Cleric's character so much they kept calling the rogue her boyfriend. You're gonna heal your boyfriend first, right? Good chat with your boyfriend now? Cleric finally DM'd him, nicely but firmly, that his behavior was unwelcome. He used the excuse that he just doesn't have people skills and doesn't get out much. He chilled for about 2 sessions, then went back to the weirdness, and then he dropped the N-word mid-waiting room banter, defending it with, "I'm brown too." Nope, not cutting it. Ugh, the cringe. I'm sorry. Nope, not cutting it. During the long rest after escaping a cave, my monk, being the party's cook, decided to make miso soup. I'm a weeb, sue me. As I described cooking the savory broth, Problem Player interrupted, shouting, "Oh, you whipping up some soul food?" Cue my snapping point. I shouted back, "No, what the hell? I said I was making miso soup. When the hell have I ever said I was making soul food this whole campaign?" He laughed, expecting everyone else to brush it off again. Nope, not this time. The session straight up ended. The cleric gathered us in a group chat, and we all agreed Problem Player had to go. He claimed he just couldn't read social cues. Hard to believe, since he'd already been kicked from a previous game after creating explicit fan art of Cleric's character and a mutual female friend. Wait, whoa, don't move on. He made lesbian porn of his friend? Back up. I guess he just didn't want to drag it out. The next session opened with the paladin's corpse floating down a river, the party standing at that river, and my monk wiping blood from his gauntlets. A fitting end, if I do say so myself.
Flashback.
Oh gods, our poor friend, he ended up dead in the river after pissing off the entire group. What could have happened? Wait, I'm still alive. It's a tragedy that will never be solved.
We replaced Problem Player with Cleric's cousin, who became our mage. And though the campaign ultimately ended a few sessions later, thanks to the DM railroading us into TPK and then just ditching the Discord, another horror story for another time, the rest of us are still rolling together every Wednesday, Problem Player free. Thank you for reading, for all your incredible stories you bring to light. Keep up the fantastic work, Crispy. You're a master storyteller. You're the master storyteller. I'm just reading this. TLDR. Problem Player's racist jokes and creepy obsession got worse despite multiple warnings. He claimed ignorance. I can't read social cues. Got kicked and met a watery demise in our next session. We live to roll another day without him. Ay. This guy is just... he's disappointing on multiple fronts, I guess. Yeah, if someone's being racist to one of your table mates, you have to stop that. If you don't, your table might implode. I'm glad the DM was so quick to kick the Problem Player out after the final straw, but frankly, I feel like we should have final straw a few straws earlier in stories like this. It doesn't matter if they're joking or they're saying everything in good fun, because it does make things awkward. It brings down the mood of the group, and when you're trying to roleplay together, that kind of thing absolutely matters. If you're not comfortable with your table mates, you're not going to be as invested in the story, in your characters, in their characters especially. And at that point, why are you even playing Dungeons and Dragons? Just do literally anything else. The racist jokes are not worth it. I am a snacker. I cannot play D&D unless I have something to chow down on, but most of the snacks these days just make me sick mid-game. I wish there was something that was better for me. Thank God for MagicSpoon. Video is sponsored by MagicSpoon, who create delicious cereal that has both that childlike nostalgia and actual health benefits. Look, I have a lot of fond memories of eating cereal as a kid, but I haven't done it in years until MagicSpoon started sponsoring me. This cereal is just as good as any I remember from my childhood, fitting a variety of diets. High protein, no sugar, and great for those who are trying to stay carb conscious. Look, if you don't trust my opinion on MagicSpoon, trust my mother's, because I send all my sponsorship packages to my parents for safekeeping. But you know what she did the moment she received the MagicSpoon box?
She ate it! This was all that was left for me to film the ad!
Yeah, that's right. MagicSpoon is mom approved. Whether you're getting the cereal or the protein bars, I'm confident that you will find them absolutely delicious. If you're interested, you can head down into the description down below or to the pinned comment where you can use my code or the link so that you can get $5 off your order of MagicSpoon. Thank you so much to MagicSpoon for sponsoring this week's videos. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Without further ado, I'm going to turn back into Anime Rat so we can get back to the video. I've been binging your videos a lot recently. It's been super enjoyable and I really love your content. While I, thankfully, do not have the worst stories, those would be saved for video game stories, being a woman in voice chat never seems to bode well, no.
I hate women. Also, will you go on a date with me?
Bro, as a dude who plays a lot of competitive games, just turn it off. What are they saying that's so useful? Just turn it off. You'll thank me, okay? Come to the light. My first experience with Dungeons & Dragons was rough, to say the least. I had zero experience with TTRPGs at this point, maybe just seeing it in Stranger Things and friends mentioning it, but I hadn't even gotten into Critical Role yet, never mind playing. Cue a couple friends mentioning their friend wanted to try running a game for the first time, and I was really excited to play. The group consisted as follows: the Dungeon Master, myself as Cleric, the Paladin, aka the problem, it's always the Paladin, man, y'all gotta stop! The Rogue, the Sorcerer, and I don't blame the DM, as it was his first time playing, but there was no session 0. First time DM, I'll let it pass. I was just struggling with D&D Beyond character creation, unsure of what I should really do. I ended up making a lawful good cleric and didn't even come up with a name or backstory. A mix of nerves and anxiety with a lack of help, and my friends inviting me seemingly just not taking anything seriously. I have a hard time stepping out of my comfort zone. This starting vibes were just not allowing me to do so. Despite this, I tried to be a loyal cleric with the code, devoted to the town and a kind protector. Our paladin also claimed to have a strict moral code, but more just had a sense of pride. We did not get far into this game. We had just met a knight NPC in town who was escorting us to whatever the next objective was. We were trying to do in-character dialogue and joking, but the NPC was trying to help facilitate that, doing some light joking of his own. The paladin decided at this time his honor was being disrespected, and he told the dungeon master he wanted to initiate combat with this guy.
Hey, you know what this reminds me of? Your mom. How dare you! You have disrespected my honor! How did I even disrespect your honor? I was talking about your mom. It wasn't even you. It doesn't matter. I challenge you to single combat. Draw your blade, or you will be slain at once.
The Dungeon Master was clearly taken aback and did not expect this, but the Paladin just kept saying his honor had been disrespected. The Rogue just seemed excited to start a combat, and I was really confused. I didn't want to engage in combat with a random NPC, and this was like just a half an hour into the first session. It was so sudden, but the DM has roll initiative and the battle started. Not that it lasted too long. I didn't know about non-lethal attacks being a thing at the time, but didn't think to ask, but was trying my best to make an emphasis that I didn't want to kill the guy, but was going to assist my party. With it being like 4-1, we took down the guy pretty fast. Bro got jumped over like a dad joke, no! The DM announced that the guy was dead, and the paladin decided he wanted to behead him, claiming he kept his head as a trophy. I didn't even know what to say or do, and there was no way I could continue with what little morals I had laid out for my character with this party, and the DM clearly was so confused. At the hour mark of the session, we called it there, so the DM could plan how to take this session in a sudden evil territory. And my dark urge beheaded people, and she was super nice. I expressed slight frustration afterwards, but I didn't really know how games were supposed to be and kind of just assumed that this was it. The game never picked back up for a session 2, and I don't really talk to any of them anymore. Aside from that, the entire party just wasn't taking it seriously, and was being so out of it. I couldn't get invested, and I was so nervous. It really kept me away from the game for a bit. I did end up watching Critical Role and sparked my interest back in when I realized how a party could mesh with each other. Thankfully, I ended up having a wonderful dungeon master who later was happy and patient with me for learning, and happy to answer my questions. And another DM friend even ran a module I was interested in running for some other friends just to get comfortable with DMing, and letting me see both sides of the screen, which was really kind. I've played in other 5e games as well as other tabletop role-playing game systems since then, and I barely think about that first game experience anymore. And that's because, thankfully, it's the only bad experience I've ever had with tabletop role-playing games. Now, if you ever do Destiny 2 horror stories, sign me up, because I have plenty of those to share. Thanks for reading all this, and sorry if it was long-winded. Dude, submit your Destiny 2 horror stories. I'm right there with you. It's funny because I guarantee there's going to be at least one person who's like, oh my god, she fell into the Matt Mercer effect. But I just hate that whole principle. If you're unaware to the idea that Critical Role sets unrealistic expectations, and yeah, if you expect your game is literally going to be identical to a professional show, you're going to be disappointed. But if you just want your character to be able to roleplay without you being made fun of, or people who take the game a little bit more seriously, that's not unrealistic expectations, it's just a different style of play. A lot of people frame that style as fake, only cultivated by YouTubers and Twitch streamers, but like, those games are out there. I've played in them. I've also played in casual games. Both are valid, but both also exist. People pretend like one is some unrealistic fantasy, but it's not. If you want a game like that, go find it. You're not crazy or taking things too seriously. You just gotta find a group that melds with you a lot more. And it was clear that your original group just wasn't doing that. And that's okay. They can have fun their way, and you can have fun your way. I discovered your channel recently. I'm a big fan of your content and opinions, which is not something I'm accustomed to hearing. This may not be your typical TTRPG horror story, but here goes nothing. It's more of a funny one, trust me. The only important person is myself, and of course you got the obligatory English as my first language warning, but who needs grammar, am I right? So now let's get the show on the road. It all started when I watched The Dice Actors, which is a smaller version of a show like Critical Role, an actual play. I immediately fell in love with the system of Fiasko and the funny/stupid roleplay possibilities within it. So I didn't hesitate and bought the starter set, which was unnecessarily hard to begin with. I was so excited to play it in person with a group of friends. Unfortunately, I had to recognize that they were not really into these type of games, but I will convince some of them someday. So at this point, the book stayed at home, gathering dust. Months went by, but on one faithful random weekday, I was browsing on the Dice Actors community Discord and got an LFG post for Fiasko, that same game. It was only a couple of hours old, and so I contacted them immediately. Unfortunately, the two planned groups were already filled up. Some days later, I had already accepted my defeat, but another message popped up. It just said, so, because there was so much interest, how about I run 3 sessions instead? Everyone was fine with that, especially myself, so we went straight to the date management, which does sound a bit weird. Yeah, I think you mean scheduling. Date management sounds like something Dedra Miro would say. My session was planned to be the second one run, so there was a lot of time for me to wait. Then, it was finally time for the first group to play, and I was excited to watch. But as in any good story involving any group that hasn't played together, the #1 TTRPG curse arose from its unholy realm, and the group had to be delayed. So, okay, the next session, the one I was in, comes around, and oh, what's that? Another message from our organizer. What's that? Oh, the session is delayed again. Yeah, you probably could have guessed that. I was sad, of course, but that's life. That's what all the people say. What I didn't realize, it wasn't my session that got delayed, but round 3 was. I just hadn't read the message correctly. The server ranks are divided into 5 kingdoms from the continent where the actual play takes place, and one of the other players, one whose round got delayed, was in the same kingdom as me. Additionally, we both had the kingdom and their surnames. Anyway, yeah. So my group was planned for a Sunday afternoon. Everything was actually fine. Enter Sunday afternoon. I had just returned home from a long day. The first thing my parents told me was that at home, the internet is down. Really? Now, one day before I could play the game, I was hyped for months. Well, screw it. My hopes was our internet provider could fix this problem by Sunday, so I had to tell the group what's what, but they already had a new date planned for us anyway. But I had enough. I really wanted to play on that day, so I told them. They were worried that I couldn't play with such a lackluster connection, and I didn't listen. I went full hacker man and tried to connect my PC to the private hotspot on my phone, and that did not work. Guess I had to decimate my data volume with a Discord call with 5 people in Facecam with 2 additional window displays for the dice and a relationship sheet on my tiny little phone screen. Fun fact, the last session of my homebrew campaign of 2 years, that happened to me. I tried using the hotspot and it was not successful. We ended up staying up until 4 a.m. in order to get the session done. Totally worth it. Look, let's just say at this point I was really annoyed with everything going on. I didn't even activate my cam at all. My connection to the other cameras was down several times, and often I had to ask what was happening because I couldn't even understand what they were saying properly. But the best always comes last. As we were nearing the big finale, my father came to me in my room and told me something I never thought was possible. The internet was working again! A blessing from heaven itself, although it was a little bit too late. But at least I could enjoy the big conclusion of our really, pun definitely intended, Wild West Fiasko adventure. Despite my technical difficulties, I and all the other players had a real blast. A lot of laughter, screaming, crying, a 12-pound mountain howitzer, and a lot of what the hells. I cannot wait to see what wild stuff happens to all the other groups playing in the game. Well, that's it. I hope you fit this in somewhere, and have a lovely day, my little animated rat friend. Man, I thought my Wi-Fi service was bad. When we have an outage, they fix it within hours, and even that pisses me off. You had to wait a whole day? I'm starting to realize that us North Americans might be a tad impatient. But in any case, yes. I think if there's big technical difficulties, delay the session. I'd rather a session be delayed than having to work through all the stuttering, all the video dropout, all the audio dropout, having to clarify who's saying what and what's going on. All of that, as a dungeon master, is very stressful. I think from the player perspective, it might not be that bad, but for a DM, it just triggers my anxiety. It gets me so worked up to have to deal with those issues. Obviously here, your DM agreed to run the session, so if they agree, they agree. But try not to pressure a DM into running a session if there are technical difficulties. They probably are just too nice to say no, and obviously they want to run the game too, but many DMs would rather just delay the game. I've been a fan for a few years now, and all your narrations kept me company through countless Monster Hunter sessions, so I guess it's finally my turn to share. This is the first horror story I've had in a long time, and thankfully I got out of there before it truly began. I've been itching to play a new system that caught my fancy, and immediately set to shifting through Discord LFGs, hoping to find a seat at the table. LFG, where people go to die. After a bit of waiting around and casting the net, so to speak, I found one. As the only female-bodied person at the table of older guys, I'm non-binary, but that's not really important to the story, that already had me a little on edge, but I never got far enough for that factor to even matter. I signed up, I scheduled an interview, it was an on-camera session, which I expected. After all, this was a streamed game, and I was the most ready for that. I love performing, so we had our interview, everything went okay. Dude made a show of talking about how he wasn't cool with racists, or any of that, which made me feel a lot better for like 1 minute. But then my age came up, and after he took a guess, I told him a little older than he thought I was. Even so, he asked if I knew what the half plus 7 rule was, and I told him I was out of that range. What's the half plus 7 rule? According to the rule, 28-year-old would not date. What the fuck? Who comes up with this crap? Oh. Yet another thing we can blame the French for. Look, apparently according to the half plus 7 rule, I was out of the range, and thus too young to date him, so don't get any ideas. Okay, sure. As a fellow ace, I'm sure you can understand how uncomfortable it was to have alonormativity pushed on you. I'm just uncomfortable with the whole notion of the whole thing, bro. the flags were pretty orange, but I was so anxious after my previous horror story years ago and so desperate to play this system that I convinced myself I was just being too sensitive. So I just assumed the best. After all, it could have been his attempt to imply he wasn't going to be weird at the table, right? Well, orange is one hell of a variable color, and it's funny how red it can look when you put it next to another redder flag. The final straw came in the form of a comment in the Discord, which had absolutely nothing to do with me personally. What it did have to do with was milk. Yes, that's right. Milk. Someone made a comment about chocolate. I don't remember what it was. It doesn't even matter. What did matter was that after having already made a suspect comment about consuming milk being bestiality, my DM-to-be said outright that chocolate was the product of... Alright, man. I kid you not, his issue wasn't like the child slave labor, the damage done by large-scale industrial farming, or any other wild human rights violation chocolate production companies indulge in. It was just the milking of the cows part. And you know, I don't have an issue with vegans. That's a choice you make, and that's personal, but I do have an issue with the fact he was comparing assault and harassment, something at least 1 in 3 women are victimized by, to a mild daily routine a non-sapient animal participates in every day. It felt dehumanizing in a way that I couldn't stop thinking about it for days, and at first, I already felt sick to my stomach just in the moment. And this is the kicker. I wasn't even gonna leave. I was gonna try the game anyway. It wasn't until I talked to one of my siblings about it, and the words, if this was like a 5e game, I'd probably just be out of there immediately. That was when I just knew. Just because it's a system I really, really wanted to play at the time, doesn't make it worth staying for. I've been watching your channel a pretty long time, so I know the phrase, no D&D is better than bad D&D. And it was finally time to put my money where my mouth was. So I did. When I let the DM know I'd been watching the Discord and felt the group wasn't a good fit for me, the response I got was civil, but it also came with a hefty dose of, I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable. I didn't tell him he personally upset me. I don't think he watches content like this, but if he does, you really should avoid comparing traumatic real-life altering events to a cow's daily routine, dude. Look, I got my own opinions about aspects of the animal farming industry, and I'm sure some of those opinions would make people uncomfortable. Guess what? I don't share them regularly all the time, and I sure as hell don't compare those opinions to real-life crimes that could be quite traumatizing to some of my players. I mean, look, it's an unfortunate fact, but you don't know how people have been victimized in your life. You think everybody around you is all sunshine and rainbows, but the truth is, man, you don't know people, you don't know what they've been through. So watch your mouth. However, I am kind of glad this guy was brutally honest with who he is, because if he wasn't, you would have been stuck in the campaign, it would have happened midway through, and it would have been much less likely that you would have left. So if anything, it's good. That might be the takeaway here. Be yourself before a D&D campaign. Show people who you are. And if they like you, they like you. If they don't, well, it's for the best that they just leave. Hey, that's a wrap. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, then make sure to leave the comment, he's a turtle, to let me know that you made it all the way to the end. If you want to check out more of our content, you might enjoy this RPG horror story marathon. It's a full hour long, but before you go, please do like and subscribe, and if you're able, please do support us on Patreon for exclusive content. In essence, like, comment, subscribe, support. I will see you all next time. Farewell.